Happy Monday, everybody. Monday starts the week, and we are here to get you ready for Monday Night Football. We are taking a look at props for not one, but two games. You're going to want to stick around because we've got some incredible, actionable info for both Monday Night Football games tonight. We're also going to do a look ahead to Week 3. We're going to tell you some numbers that we're hoping to see on some certain players. For player props, it's really important to get ready for Week 3, so when those prop lines drop, we know what we're looking for. And then we will close out with our anytime touchdown score game. We are going to be able to pick from players from both games tonight. Hopefully we can add to the units to that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this Monday. My fellow prop masters, Matt Josephs from sportsmemo.com, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com. Andrew, I'm coming to you first on $9 Monday. I know you've got some good things up. Tell us what you have up, where we can find you, and let's start with the quarterback props in the Saints and the Panthers game.
Andy, great to be here with you guys. Love that we're doing these Monday shows. Number 2 in football last 30 days, and I won't be cheeky. I'll definitely make it very clear. A lot of that is because of the CFL. CFL and NFL combined. Doing well in the NFL so far. It was pretty much a wash yesterday, though, maybe a negative a tiny bit. But I've done well in the primetime game so far, and I have a best bet going tonight. Of course, this is a great opportunity because we have 2 games on Monday Night Football. So looking forward to getting after it tonight. Andy, as far as tonight's game goes in the quarterback, the first game we're looking at, the only one I really have selected so far, and you guys know I love these ones, is the Derek Carr pass attempts over. Coming off one where he just barely squeaked over the number. But I'm looking at this Carolina team. I don't think they faced a team last week that's going to be like New Orleans, that has the firepower as far as the receiving core as New Orleans has to offer. And I'm not saying I don't love the running back room that New Orleans has, but I feel like they're going to be a pretty pass-heavy team. And like I stated, when you've got the guys out wide like they do, they can certainly expose Carolina. So, of course, you like teams to go down, and I think Carolina could contend, and that would keep the Saints from just running the ball out time and time again. But I'm seeing 31.5 pass attempts for Derek Carr. I expect him to be a pass-heavy quarterback tonight, Andy, and that number I think should get over easy. So that's my only play as far as quarterbacks. In the next game, I'll have more quarterback props.
Coming to you, Matt Josephs at sportsmemo.com. Tell us where we can find you at, what you have up, and what do you think about the quarterbacks in the Saints and the Panthers?
You guys always have these creative green screens. I just decided to put childhood bedroom as my green screen for today. But seriously, though, I'm home, so that's why I look like I'm in a fog here. But another 6-2 weekend in college football. So that's a second straight Saturday going 6-2. So things are going well. Promo code MATT3 gets you 3 days for $39. And I would suggest maybe using it on Friday. Then you get baseball, then you get college football, and then you get the NFL. So MATT3 gets you all access for $39. And basically the only thing kind of piggybacking off of what Andrew said that I like in this game is it's interesting to see Derek Carr over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 110. I mean, obviously, the weather looks good tonight. I was kind of concerned that if it's plus, that the weather maybe wasn't the greatest, but it looks pretty good tonight. So I would always take a chance here. As Andrew said, this is probably going to be a passing team. They've got good wide receivers. So give me over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Derek Carr here. There's not enough of a sample size yet on Bryce Young for me to figure anything out with him yet. So I'll just take the quantity I know and go with Derek Carr.
Great work, Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com. I have a 5% UFC play that is up now. It is $9 Monday, so you can grab a 5%. Why should you grab that? Well, we're on a 10-1 run in MMA. We are seeing the sport extremely well. We had a great NFL weekend. We're now plus 12.6 units through 2 weeks of NFL. And we do have a Monday Night Football best bet. It is a prop that is up there. We absolutely love it. So take advantage of $9 Monday. You get your 5% UFC play and a Monday Night Football best bet. I'm piggybacking off of you guys. I'm going Derek Carr over passing. You guys found numbers I love. I like the 230.5 passing. He had over 300 yards last week. Carolina without their best corner. J.C. Horn just got put on IR. And I like that the Saints are still thin at running back without Alvin Kamara. They rushed 27 times for 69 yards last week. It's a pass-heavy team. And for Bryce Young, I'm going back to it for him to throw an interception. It's a touch juicy. But against this defense, I think the Saints defense is extremely good. He threw 2 interceptions last week. Their offensive line is terrible. I think the game script is going to fall the way where he's going to have to throw a lot. So I'll take Bryce Young to throw an interception and sweep the board on Derek Carr overs. We all like Derek Carr to have a really nice game tonight. Let's move to running back props in the Saints and the Panthers. Andrew, what did you find for running backs in this game?
Andy, when I look at Miles Sanders, I'm looking at a guy that I think that nobody's talked about him finding a new home and him succeeding here. I'm looking at another attempts prop, not a yards. Like I stated last time with completions versus attempts in quarterback props. Well, running back props, yards versus attempts. You don't have to worry about what they do on the ground. All you have to do is them getting the touches and worry about that. He had 18 rush attempts. His number is 15.5. I believe kind of the opposite of what I stated there about the Saints the last time around. They're going to be a very pass-heavy game. Carolina, I think, has a pretty crowded running back room. For them, it's going to be relying on their defense to make plays and slowing the game down big time with their running back game. With Miles Sanders, though, he's not breaking out for these huge plays. Like, he doesn't really ever seem to break out for a huge run. It's just consistency with him. And if that's the case, and they're going to go to him quite often, you look back at the team he came from, we all know the story. There were too many guys. It was very crowded. But for him here, I feel like he is the number one guy. He's a guy that will get all the touches. And that's why we're seeing a number as high as 15.5. Sometimes numbers are as high as they are for a reason. So I'm going to go over 15.5 rush attempts for Miles Sanders.
Matt, coming to you, running backs in the Saints and the Panthers. Anything jumping off the page for you?
Yeah, Miles Sanders stinks. That's why. I mean, Miles Sanders got fat and happy off a really good system the Eagles had and a really good offensive line, and now he got his money, but he's gone to a system that's not as good and an offensive line that's nowhere near as good. So I think Miles Sanders is just, I mean, this is what he is. And plus you got Chuba Hubbard there who played, I think, a little bit more than people expected last week. So if you look, he had 36% of the snaps last week and 69 yards, which is pretty good for that little bit of time. So I think that's why you're kind of not seeing as much Miles Sanders stuff. I'll take a look at Jamal Williams. Obviously, we're going to do our touchdown thing later. I mean, Jamal Williams wasn't very good, but he got a lot of the carries. So if we think potentially this could be a close game, or if we think the Saints are going to win by a lot, Jamal Williams' attempts might be worth a look here because his backups aren't exactly very good, there's rookies too. So I think he's going to get a lot of the touches in this game if they do choose to run the ball.
I'm piggybacking off you guys. I'm taking Miles Sanders under 63.5 rushing. Andrew, I agree he's going to get carries. So I think that offensive line is so bad. I'm not sure what he can do with them. The Saints, they held Derrick Henry to 63 yards rushing, and the number for Miles Sanders is 63.5. No thanks. So I think the game script could get away with him. So my opinion on this game is the Saints dominate. I've picked the Saints in the survivor pool. So my props are going to be based on Bryce Young having to throw, them not having much success on the ground. So I'm taking Miles Sanders under 63.5 as my favorite running back prop. Let's combine the wide receivers and tight ends in this one. Andrew, passing game for Saints and Panthers. What do you like for wide receivers or tight ends?
Andy, I was reading something earlier this morning about Derek Carr and his relationship with tight ends. Seems to be a good one. And no matter where he's been or who he has, his relationship with tight ends seems to always be good, and they're successful. That's why I'm looking at Juwan Johnson over on his receiving yards. Also, don't forget, Andy, what you said there. Hopefully we can both cash our ticket. I mean, you're taking the under rushing. Hopefully I can hit my ticket as well. But this is a guy that has a really low number. And lately I've had success with receiving yard plays when I'm not betting guys with the highest number on the board, with the 60, 70, 80 yards. I understand the best guy in the field, the top player, some of the top 5 wide receivers are so great, but they're given these big numbers. Now, looking at this number, this is 25.5 receiving yards, coming off a 36-yard performance, and I feel like he's going to get a ton of more touches here. I'm actually sprinkling a little bit on him to get a touchdown, but I'm not going to have that in the end on our little bit of a game. That's why I wanted to mention that. But I think he's going to be very successful. Everyone's talking about the standout wideouts that this New Orleans team has. I'm looking at Juwan Johnson have a big game.
Matt, what do you think? Wide receivers and tight end props, Saints and Panthers. What do you like?
I mean, obviously, it feels like Rashid Shaheed. All he catches is like 40-yard bombs, 50-yard bombs. So he's going to be that guy. I feel like we're going to go to longest reception over, pretty much. And then you kind of look at the other guys. I mean, Adam Thielen. It's so crazy to see Adam Thielen's number be so low, but this passing attack is just so inconsistent. You almost want to take it, by proxy, just because 2.5 for Adam Thielen and what he's done. But obviously, this is not a career thing. This is not what have you done in the past thing. It's what have you done in the present. But 2.5 seems really weird for Adam Thielen. But, Rashid Shaheed, the guy I kind of want to go after here, especially with these long completions. Derek Carr loves airing it out. Plus his is 2.5 receptions. There's a lot of low numbers here when you look at this game. Michael Thomas looked really good, but of course he's probably unfortunately going to get injured at some point. But, the wide receivers are just really not that great in this contest.
I agree, and I'll take it one step further, Matt. I'm taking Adam Thielen under 33.5 yards receiving. He had 2 catches for 12 yards last week. Against Atlanta, Carolina did not have a wide receiver with more than 23 yards receiving. Adam Thielen is old and slow, and now he's a little bit banged up. He's got a rookie quarterback. This is a bad situation. I get that they brought him in to be a veteran presence in the locker room. I'm sure he is an absolutely fantastic mentor for I don't know what Andrew's laughing at. Maybe me ripping Adam Thielen. Yeah, give me the under there on this one. I would also like to throw out that the Panthers team total is 18.5. They scored 10 points last week, and I love the Saints defense. So I'm going to take the Panthers under 18.5 team total. So, all right, Andrew, you have to tell me what you're laughing at when we're moving to quarterbacks here for the Browns and the Steelers. Let's start off with quarterback props. We got Deshaun Watson. We got Kenny Pickett. What do you like?
Andy, you're the giggliest guy at WagerTalk, and you're going to get at me for giggling. I apologize. That's my bad. Here's the deal. The reason why I'm giggling about that was because I came into the season planning to bet props on Adam Thielen. Like I was like, there's going to be so many buy low spots. This is going to be a guy we're going to get great numbers on. Veteran guy, still going to be able to make his presence known. No, thank you. I'm good. I'm okay as far as he's concerned there with that. So I was just laughing because I was thinking about myself trying to find ways to bet on a guy that I just shouldn't be doing. So I have to learn my lesson that it's not always a buy low spot. Just because a guy that used to be good is getting a lower number, it doesn't mean it's value. But here, look, speaking of value, I absolutely trashed Kenny Pickett last week on Twitter all day long because my 5% had a teaser leg on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's the deal. They were playing the Niners that have a great defense as far as secondary. Their pass rush is unbelievable. They made Pickett look awful in the first half. I think things are going to be a little bit different for him, but I actually think that I'm going to take his longest pass completion over. I feel like this Cleveland team seems to get burnt a couple different times, especially early in games. And Kenny Pickett has more of an arm than you think. And I know they're dealing with injuries as well, but there's several guys that can get the job done on the receiving core. And Kenny Pickett, I think it's an interesting opportunity for him coming off last week's game where he just didn't look all that strong and consistent. The second half, the only reason why they were able to kind of rally and drive the field, well, because every single play they were making was a 10-yard pass, a 5-yard pass. I think in this matchup, they're going to let him go a little bit, let him breathe. So I'll take the longest completion for Kenny Pickett over.
Nice. Longest completion on Kenny Pickett. Matt, what do you think about the quarterbacks in this Browns-Steelers matchup?
I'm interested kind of in the Deshaun Watson rushing. I think Deshaun Watson, there's some value. He had over 40 yards rushing last week. The Steelers have a pretty good pass rush, and if he gets flushed out of the pocket, I think he's getting back to what he used to be with the Texans. So I think that number for the Deshaun Watson rushing, a little bit low, 25.5. Obviously, shop around. There could be some different numbers for different books. But that's where I'm kind of taking a look here. I want nothing to do with Kenny Pickett. Listen, I think this is going to be an ugly game potentially for the Steelers. I think it's going to be an ugly game for both of them, but I'm focusing more on Watson here.
Yeah, I agree. It could be an ugly game. I'm gonna take a look at Kenny Pickett just over his attempts. It's 30.5. He had 46 last week. I know it was a blowout, and I know they got into complete complete throwing as many times as you can in garbage time. But, the Browns were good against the run last week. They allowed only 3.8 yards a carry. And I think if you're going to attack this Cleveland Browns team, you got to be a little bit more aggressive. And I think you're going to have to force a lot more throws. I could see dump offs to the running backs being a part of this game. So coming off of 46, I'm sure the Steelers don't want Kenny Pickett to throw the ball 46 times, but sometimes the game script just forces you to end up passing more than you want to. So I'll take 30.5 over pass attempts. I can't say it's a super confident play, but if I'm playing a quarterback prop, that's it. Running back props, Browns and Steelers. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of running backs in this one with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. We also got Nick Chubb, of course. Andrew, what do you like about running backs in this game?
Yeah, I like what you said. I mean, Andy, you're right about the fact that they're going to have to pass the ball a lot. And, of course, I'm open for a good night from Kenny Pickett. He can throw it deep at least one time. But I read that it's going to be about a 50-50 split between Harris and Jaylen Warren. Last week doesn't really indicate that because, well, they got destroyed in the first half. And that's why here we are in week 2 breaking down games, or I guess breaking down 2 games for Monday Night Football. You can't really base your predictions and your props off just what you saw last week. It's got to be on your preseason predictions, some rankings you saw last year, and reports you've read, because anybody looking at what they were able to do last week is going to think they have a horrible running back room, but they just weren't able to run the ball at all. I'm kind of looking at this where it's going to be a Jaylen Warren gets the ball up the field and Najee Harris finishes it off once they get closer to the end zone. So I'm going to take the over rushing yards, over 31.5 for him. I think this is going to be an absolute running back duel until the teams don't let each other do that, until one team airs it out and then kind of turns into more of a high scoring game. So especially early on, if I could bet first half rushing yards for him, I'd almost be more intrigued to do that. But I'm looking at rushing yards for Jaylen Warren. I feel like I said, he's going to be the guy that gets it early in the drive, and Najee Harris will be the guy that finishes things off. And a running back prop, I look at Nick Chubb. Everybody, knows what he's capable of on the ground. I feel like he might get involved in the receiving game. I don't feel like anyone talks about that enough. But how is this guy able to turn nothing into something every single time he gets the ball? When's the last time you saw him, catch a ball for 2 or 3 yards and not turn it into a pretty good play? And you see his number is incredibly low. So I haven't bet that ever. I've never bet Nick Chubb receiving, but I'm kind of intrigued by that today just based on the number.
Matt, what do you think running backs here in the Browns and the Steelers?
I will caution you, Andrew. Trying to chase Nick Chubb receiving yards and receptions last year was absolutely miserable. I mean, here's the thing. You look at a lot of these games where he has these numbers, and then the next game he has 0, or the next game he has 1 catch for 2 yards. Like, look at his game log last year. It feels like every time that they figure out, hey, let's throw the ball to Nick Chubb, and then he has a success, the next week it's like 0 and 0. So I 100% agree that in theory, he is logical. And if you look at last year, he had 0 catches for 0 yards in one game against the Steelers, and then he had 5 catches for 45 yards against the Steelers. So I'm done trying to figure it out. It's going to be one of those things where this week you'll say, yes, he's going to be awesome, and then he won't, and then next week he will. So that's my one caution for people looking at last week when it comes to Chubb's receptions, because as we've talked about on this show last year a lot, it was a very frustrating thing to try and chase.
It's square, but I guess I got to look at Nick Chubb over 82.5 rushing. He had 113 against Pittsburgh in week 1 last year. He had 77 very last week of the season. San Fran rushed the ball 34 times for 188 yards against Pittsburgh. And I think Pittsburgh always kind of gets a pass because we always think, oh, tough defense. It may not be as tough this year. San Francisco made pretty quick work of them in the rushing game. McCaffrey had the huge run as well. So Nick Chubb over 82.5. Let's move to wide receivers and tight ends for the Browns and the Steelers. Andrew, what do you like in this one for the passing game?
Yeah, I couldn't believe what I saw with how impressive Cleveland looked last week, and their best receiver had 43 receiving yards. I mean, that says a lot about Nick Chubb. It says they had a good defensive game, and it also says that it was very spread out. But to me, that shocked me in a big way, seeing that, usually you see a team absolutely dominate somebody else, And there must be one guy that got in the 60s, 70s, maybe as far as the receiving number. But no, that wasn't the case. But Elijah Moore did go over his receiving yards number. And with the injury to Amari Cooper, I will be looking towards Elijah Moore once again this week. I'm going to take over 41.5 receiving yards. And I'm also looking at Pat Freiermuth for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel like they're going to be looking over the top quite a bit. Of course, they're dealing with Deontay Johnson being out. Freiermuth got like a couple targets last week, but wasn't really able to turn it into much. Didn't really have a great game, but I feel like he'll be definitely utilized a lot more in the passing attack, and his number is super low. I feel like he's someone that can elevate himself over the next few weeks in the passing game for the Steelers, and you're going to get better and better numbers, worse and worse numbers. So I would bet that now before the number starts to get worse. But I'm going to keep betting Elijah Moore. I got laughed at for drafting him in 2 fantasy leagues. So we'll see what happens tonight, because I feel like he could find the end zone as well.
Matt, what do you like wide receivers and tight ends for Browns and Steelers?
Are we actually talking about Allen Robinson being relevant? Like, I mean, this is where we're at now, and that Allen Robinson is probably a decent play tonight, considering, the slot is a place that you can take advantage of the Cleveland Browns. It's, his receptions number is 2.5. Of course, it's a little juicy if you want to take the over there, but I mean, Allen Robinson also feels like the type of guy that you expect to have good nights, and then he just doesn't show up. So I think I'm going to take a chance and say that Allen Robinson is going to show up. Maybe look at his receiving yards over here. I think Pickens is kind of the one guy that the Cleveland's going to focus on. Calvin Austin's not bad. I liked him at Memphis, but I think I'm going to focus on Allen Robinson. And then on Friday, when Allen Robinson does nothing, you can both yell at me.
I feel like Allen Robinson's like a 17-year veteran. I feel like we've been talking about him for the greater part of my adult life. I'm with you. I can't believe Allen Robinson is relevant. Only prop I was looking at, Andrew, I'm kind of going up a little bit against you here, but I like Freiermuth under 3.5 receptions. I went back and looked. He had 0 catches against Cleveland in the last game of the season on 2 targets. He only had 2 catches against Cleveland in the first game, and he went under this 3.5 in 7 out of 15 games. Last week, 4 targets, only 1 catch. So he may get a couple more targets, but they were not on the same page last week. And I'm with Matt. I think they can attack through the slot and through some other ones. I did notice that Pat Freiermuth tends to go over his longest reception quite a bit. It's 16.5. And he went over this 10 out of 15 games, which is kind of strange. You don't think of Pat Freiermuth going over his longest reception, but might be worth a sprinkle there. I'll take a look at the under 3.5, but nothing very strong for that one. All right, guys, that is it for Monday Night Football. Let's talk about some numbers and players we hope to see for Week 3. So, Andrew, what we're doing is kind of taking a look at what we've seen the last couple weeks, and we're kind of projecting and keeping our fingers crossed that the books give us really good numbers on some players we're excited to bet on. What kind of catches your eye, and what are you hoping to see for Week 3 when these prop lines come out?
So, Andy, I understand that it's mostly a better idea to bet on winning players, guys that have had success, guys that are on teams that have had success. But we're looking at Trevor Lawrence that's off a game against the Kansas City Chiefs that were rested, off a loss. But he didn't look very good, and neither did that pass attack at all. The receiving core didn't look great, but I was actually pretty impressed with Kansas City's pass rush. I mean, they made life absolutely hell for Trevor Lawrence. He had no time in the pocket, couldn't make decisions, and he also completed about 7 passes to guys that were out of bounds. I mean, can you stay in bounds? Can you run some plays where guys are still in bounds, please? I'm going to be looking next week at the Jags and Trevor Lawrence over on his passing yards. They're playing the Texans. I feel like it's always an interesting spot when you have a player that's coming off a game against a really, really strong team, and then you pretty much get the opposite of that the next week. It's kind of a nice strategy to look at as far as props to rebound and bounce back, and I think that's what Trevor Lawrence will do against the Texans. One I wanted to look at as well, Seahawks and Panthers. I'm looking to get, if I can get a number in like the 40s or 50s for Tyler Lockett on his receiving. I did bet DK, and I kind of got lucky with it. He was injured and came back, and overtime saved me, but it's always an interesting scenario. Do you want DK? Do you want Lockett? It always seems like both of them can't have a good game at once. It's always one of them, but I feel like you're going to get a better number each week on Lockett. And Lockett did see targets. he did make bigger plays, and he did a great job of extending plays as well. So I will be looking towards him. And for the Patriots, I'm not sure what number I'm going to get here on this one, Andy. I'll be completely honest, but I think Vermondre Stevenson has to be a lot more involved in the offense for them. Mac Jones, I don't even know why. I'm not even a Patriots fan. A lot of people I know are Patriots fans. I defended him last year, Mac Jones, because he didn't have an offensive coordinator. Now he has one, and he's just overthrowing, underthrowing. Some people will say maybe he doesn't have the targets, but I agree with something I heard on the broadcast booth last night, and that is that Ramondre Stevenson might be the most effective player on that team. They have to use him more. So rushing and receiving for Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots next week against the almighty New York Jets might be a play I'm looking at.
Matt, what do you think for week 3? We've had a couple weeks to look at some of these teams. What numbers and players are you hoping to bet on in week 3?
I'll take the over on Ezekiel Elliott 1-yard rushes into the middle of the New England Patriots line. I think that'll be a really good prop to take next week. All right, so a couple of them that I'm looking at here, and I know, Andy, you as well had this up for your clients. If they give me any sort of rushing numbers for Joe Burrow, I'm taking the under. They said he tweaked his ankle once again last week. He had only one rush. I think it was for 5 yards yesterday. He's just not running. I mean, I have a feeling we're going to enter the territory where it's either going to be like 3.5 or they're just not going to offer it. But Joe Burrow's not running, so I'm taking the under there. Give me Cade Otton for the Bucs. Obviously, we'll talk about this next week because it's the Monday night game. But the Eagles still can't cover tight ends. So Cade Otton anything is what I'm kind of looking at there. And then I'm going to try and figure out who the Buccaneers slot receiver is because Avonte Maddox is probably done for the Eagles. Certainly watch as the week goes along. James Bradbury's status, I think he'll be back because it was just a concussion. And then also, we've talked about on the show, whenever the Commanders are in a shootout and need a lot of offense, Antonio Gibson receiving comes into play. We saw him have a nice number for receiving yesterday in the shootout against the Broncos. It's the Bills coming to Washington, D.C., so I'm looking at Antonio Gibson receiving once again.
Yeah, Matt, the Joe Burrow, they gave 9.5 yards, and then after 9.5 yards, the number went up. It's like, who's betting the over on this one? So we got a nice cash. I would say, yeah, there's no shot we're getting 9.5. I agree completely. So I'm looking at Nico Collins, longest reception, 20.5 yards. I would love to play the over on this one. He has 6 catches of 20-plus yards this year. The only guy with more is Justin Jefferson with 8. So Nico Collins is catching long passes, and he plays Jacksonville. I know it's juicy, but we talked about it. If it hits every week, who cares what the juice is? Christian McCaffrey, if it's minus 200 or better, give me the anytime touchdown. He's only scored in 11 straight games. The guy just always finds the end zone for that team. And, I mean, you got to take Zach Wilson to throw an interception against the Patriots. I would take unders. He had a good pass yesterday, like literally one good pass yesterday. So I will be taking Zach Wilson to throw an interception. That one's going to be juicy. Yeah.
I didn't bet it, but his longest pass hit. Like I can't even like pat myself on the back for it. It was like 40 yards or something. He did it again.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys were completely asleep on that play. Garrett Wilson runs across the middle wide open. I mean, I think that accounted for like, a third of his passing yards. And again, my Colts, I talked about CJ Stroud going over 215. He had 384 passing yards. They get the Ravens next week. This is a great game for Lamar to not put a lot of wear and tear on his body by running. You can just stand back there and just torch the Colts secondary. Their rush defense is good. Their rush defense is really good. So you're going to see teams just throw the ball at will. So I would look at Lamar Jackson over his attempts. I would look over his yards because he really hasn't thrown for many yards. I think he's 237 and then around like 185. So I think you're going to get a good number. And the Colts secondary is not going to be able to cover the Ravens wide receivers. And if I'm looking at some unders, the Texans running game is just a complete disaster. And they're going up against the Jaguars. I'm taking overs on passing props for Houston and under on the rushing props. I mean, poor Dameon Pierce. He gets handed the ball and he's immediately hit. He can't even he can't even try and make a move to get out in open space. The offensive line is just terrible. So Damian Pierce under and Nico Collins over, and fade that Colts secondary as well. So those are some numbers that we hope to see for week 3. And now we're moving to the anytime touchdown game. Matt has created an almost impossible game for us because we're limited to just the Monday night games. That's the only games that we have to pick. And of course, we get another low-scoring game probably with this Browns and Steelers. So we don't even have that many touchdowns to pick from. So, Matt, I do have to come to you first. Before you tell us who you like, how much do you regret suggesting this game for us to play this season?
I regret it a lot. It's a terrible idea. And this should kind of show people don't bet anytime touchdown props. This should be, we are 3 of the smartest people in the world. And Andrew's the only one in the positive. And Andy gets everything right, and he's in the negative. So, this should show you don't do it. There's the graphic right there. Andy and I are swimming in fees and things like that. And Andrew, with his wonderful haircut, is only up less than a unit. So, yeah, this should show you don't ever bet these. But, hey, if you are going to bet them, I'm putting 2 units on each of the main running backs for the winning teams probably tonight. Jamal Williams. He's the guy they go to on the 1-yard line. They don't do the tush push, so I'm going to go with Jamal Williams. And then I'm going to go with Nick Chubb, 2 units on Nick Chubb. He scores a lot of touchdowns. And then just because I hate this guy and don't like him, but he always seems to score, it feels like, I'm going to put a unit on the mutant, Taysom Hill. Somehow they run these gadget plays. He's open. You got Ross Tucker saying he's the best player in the world or whatever he said. So 2 units on Jamal Williams, 2 units on Nick Chubb, and 1 unit on Taysom Hill. And by the way, since I'm losing so much in this game, that's why my quality sucks for my camera and the room that I'm currently sitting in.
It's okay. It's a tough night to pick anytime touchdown. It would be different if we got to pick from every single game, but we agreed to do it on Monday Night Football only. So, Andrew, coming to you. What do you like? Anytime touchdowns. You got 2 games to choose from. What do you like?
So if Matt goes 3-0, does that mean next week he has the brand new Logitech webcam, the best webcam possible? If he cleans sweep, if Taysom Hill gets in, I expect a new webcam there. But look, I think I'm interested in Monday nights to see when the first person just submits their first 5-unit play, where it's just, I've got one guy circled. That'll be interesting. But I have 1 unit Chris Olave plus 205. We got 1 unit Pat Freiermuth plus 275. 2-unit play here, Najee Harris plus 145. I mentioned they kind of have that 50-50 split, but I think he will be the goal line back. 1 unit, Elijah Moore plus 275, the best receiver for them last week. Dealing with the injury, I think he will get some red zone targets at plus 275. It's a great, great price there. So Olave, Freiermuth, Harris, and Moore for me, Andy.
I'm trying to pick teams that I think are going to win, so I'm going to just try and sprinkle the Saints here. Give me 1 unit on Jamal Williams plus 115, Chris Olave plus 205, and Michael Thomas plus 230. And I think the Browns are going to score a few times, and I think they're going to do it on the ground. I like Nick Chubb at minus 135 for 1 unit, and give me Deshaun Watson plus 450. He's mobile. I think he can run, and maybe we get lucky. It gets down to the 1-yard line. He gets a quarterback sneak, but I think they score by running the ball. So I'll take Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson for the Browns. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it for us for Prop It Up on this Monday. Don't forget to check out all plays for $9 on Monday. Check out Andrew McGinnis at WagerTalk.com, Matt Josephs at SportsMemo.com. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. Don't forget to hit the like button. Leave us a comment. Tell us your favorite prop for tonight. And if you're enjoying this gambling content, don't forget to stick around. We have college football, individual game breakdown videos, NFL individual game breakdown videos, and, of course, Wager Talk today, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday. And on Monday, don't forget the opening line report, one of the best shows when you're looking at NFL lines and spreads. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good luck, and we will see everyone on Friday on Prop It Up.